you all for joining us is just simply that, again, it's sort of a few housekeeping items, if you will. The first thing to mention is that we are recording this session. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you prefer to not participate in a recorded session, our today's recording will be made available to you in the future. So thank you again for being here. We will be making use of a training environment where applicable. Just note that some elements or data or some views or functionality or data elements within the tool might be different from what you experience when you log in yourself. So just beware of that, and thank you for your understanding there. And finally, we ask that that you please keep your line muted unless you're asking an active question. You again can put any question that you have into the chat space, and if you have any technical issues, do let us know. Because we are on a recorded line and this is a shared session, please be mindful of including any PII or PHI when you submit a question. Okay. That being said, we'll jump right into the other part of our agenda here today. So I already mentioned there at the bottom that we're going to sort of have this session serve a little bit more of like an office hours type session where, again, we'll dedicate a lot of the time here today to answering your questions. But we wanted to start by talking a little bit about this upcoming process that TennCare refers to as the AUP renewal process. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Then we'll spend just a very brief minute talking about when to contact TennCare versus when to contact Health EC. And again, for those of you or for anybody wondering, just what is Health EC? That's the company, the vendor that TennCare partners with to provide you with the care coordination tool. And so we will help you understand a little bit of the difference between when to contact TennCare versus when to contact Health EC. And then again, we'll turn it over to office hours thereafter.
I called one of your people back over at Crosstown.
Okay, so
because I'm still
the first thing that we're going to talk about again is the AUP renewal process. And just one more time, if you wouldn't mind checking your line to see if you are you're muted. Again, we welcome you to here. I might just be able to do that. And so we invite you to unmute yourself during the office hours section of the session here today if you have any questions. But for the time being, please do check your lines and make sure you are on mute for now. Okay, so the AUP renewal process. What's going on? What is it? What do you need to know? So the first thing is that the AUP process is something that TennCare undertakes about once a year. It operates at least on that frequency, and many of you, anybody who has access to the care coordination tool, has submitted an AUP form in the past, and it stands for Acceptable Use Policy, and it's a standard just security document that TennCare requires anybody with access to a TennCare system that they sign it, and it has to be renewed once a year. So as many of you might recall, the care coordination tool launched in the fall of 2020. And so it was about this time of year last year that a lot of you were probably signing this form for using the current version of the care coordination tool. And so hence we are coming up on that 12-month cycle and beginning the renewal process accordingly. So in the coming weeks, we're going to begin notifying individuals whose expiration forms or whose AUP forms are nearing expiration. And so just be on the lookout for that. We'll talk a little bit about what that looks like, but you'll see when you open up the email, there will be a link for you to click on. It'll open up with something that looks like this image over on the right, and then there will be a set of forms and data fields for you to complete. So what does it look like when it's in action? Like, how does it actually work? So as I mentioned, we're going to do this sort of as forms as forms are set to expire. So there's going to be somewhat of a rolling schedule here. We will work to contact individuals about 4 to 6 weeks before their forms are due. So for anyone who submitted their form in October of 2020, you will be asked to re-sign that form, and that initial email should be going out, if not late this week, as in like today or tomorrow, then certainly early next week. So just be on the lookout from that. And Ida, I see you've got a great question here. Thank you so much. The question is the form sent to the administrator or the actual user? And that's a great question. The forms are sent to each user. So because there are it is something that you have that just requires each individual signature. We have to have one for each person. It is not necessarily up to the practice administrator to distribute those out to their users. We have that list, and so each user will be getting their own form. Um, so thank you, Ida. Absolutely. And so again, so in the next few days, anyone who signed their AUP in October of last year will be receiving a notice from TennCare. And then come mid-October, anyone who signed their forms in November of last year will be contacted by TennCare. And so on, the process will continue from that way. You don't have to worry about trying to track down your old form or try to understand or worry about when did you submit yours? Was it October? Was it November? No need to worry on that front. TennCare has all of that information documented. And so just know that again, over the next couple of months, especially for the majority of our care coordination tool users who registered to use the tool last fall as the new tool was launching, these emails, you're going to start seeing these emails come to you. Upon receiving your notification, please, we would encourage you to just go ahead and take action. The form, I promise it takes just a few minutes to fill out. And the sooner you can do it, the fewer emails you're going to get from TennCare with reminders or things like that asking you to submit it. And so we do encourage you to go ahead and submit those forms once you receive that email. And then the good news is that once you do that, you're good to go. There's nothing else that you need to do. There will not be any follow-up activity. You don't need to register a new username or ask for a new password or anything. You can just continue to use the care coordination tool the way you use the tool today. So again, that's a little bit about how the process is going to work. Be on the lookout for these emails. They're going to come from tenncare.cct@tn.gov, which hopefully you've added to your safe sender list at this point in time, and just be on the lookout for those emails. So now a couple of things to keep in mind as you begin this process and as you begin completing these forms. You will need your organization's tax ID number to complete the form. It is a required field on the form, and without it, or if an invalid tax ID number can slow this process down a little bit. And as you'll see here at the bottom, if the forms expire, you can lose access to the care coordination tool. So we don't want that to happen for anyone, and especially if if you're taking all the right steps to complete these forms in good faith, please just make sure that you get your organization's tax ID number. We'd hate for you to, again, submit the form thinking everything is appropriate, only to then potentially have your account deactivated because there was an issue with the tax ID number. So please just make sure that that is accurate and up to date. For our MCO users, the tax ID number you can use is 0. So if you have any questions about that, if you're an MCO admin on the phone and you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But hopefully that makes sense for all of you there. Okay, in the emails that you receive, there will be a link to these forms, meaning they are to be completed and submitted online through the online portal provided. Please do not email or fax these forms back to TennCare. Those will not be accepted. Additionally, we hope this is an easier process anyway, rather than having to print the form, fill it out, scan it, email it, etc. Hopefully the online portal is the most direct and easy way for you to complete this work as well. The third bullet here, please try to use the same email address you used when you initially registered for the CCT. That's, again, going to help us connect the form that you're submitting today um, to the form that you submitted in the past. And that way we can say, oh, Dylan, this is a renewal form. It's not a new form. He's not requesting new access, etc. So please try to use the same email address. If you're wondering, what email address did I use when I was registering for the CCT? Chances are it's your work email. Also, chances are it's the same as the username you use when you log into the tool. I think um, that in most cases, HealthyC converted your email addresses into your username. So again, if you have any question there, just let us know. So try to use that. It's not the end of the world if it's a little bit of a different email address or if your address has changed, but please try to use the same email address. Also, please select your specific user role on the renewal form. This is particularly important for there's one form that exists where there's a drop down button. Actually, I'll go back 2 slides that I can show you on this image here. So if you look here where it says brief justification CCT role, this is where you might have the option to select one or multiple, or I'm sorry, one role from a list of roles on if you're a practice administrator and you're receiving the practice administrator list, it automatically defaults to practice administrator and you can't change it, so you should be good there. If you're a care coordinator, there is another option in this drop-down list, so please just please be careful to choose the appropriate role here. Again, that helps with our alignment on the back end of this process to make sure that we are recognizing the form you're signing today as part of the renewal process and able to connect it back to your initial form from whenever that was submitted, perhaps a year ago. Okay. Finally, and Ida, this touches on your question just a little bit. We would ask that you do not forward this form to others. All registered and active users are going to get the form, and again, part of the reason why we're doing that is to help ensure that the role piece of this is consistent. It's if you are a practice administrator, you're going to get a form that is specific to you as a practice administrator. If you forward that to one of your colleagues who is requesting a care coordination, or I'm sorry, a care coordinator role, the forms will not match up, and and there could be a little bit of a discrepancy there, a little bit of a delay, et cetera. So just know that again, everybody who is using the tool today has signed a form in the past in order to gain access to the tool, and each person therefore will be receiving their own discrete email with a link to the form they need to complete. Um, okay, so last thing here, I promise, it's the big, it's the stick side of this, I suppose. Please just remember that your account can be deactivated if TennCare doesn't have the appropriate security documentation in place. This is a requirement because due to the nature of the tool and due to the nature of the data that is inside the tool, these security forms are required, and they are required on an annual basis. So again, we're reaching out approximately 4 to 6 weeks before your forms will expire. So for anybody who signed it last October, your form will expire at the end of October this year. So we're going to give you about 4 to 6 weeks to get these forms in. Please do not delay. We would hate for anyone to lose access to the care coordination tool, have your account deactivated, and your access interrupted. On the flip side of that, if you do lose access, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to sign these papers anyway to regain access. So again, just when you get this renewal email, it takes just a few minutes to complete the form. And if you would just take a couple of minutes when you get it, that way you know it's submitted and there's nothing else that you'll have to do at this point in time. So I want to pause here. This is the end of our sort of PSA on the AUP renewal process. That we have one question in about if you have a colleague who's maybe out for some time for some reason, they're on leave for some reason or another. How should you go about making sure that this person doesn't lose access to the care coordination tool? Um, so in that case, Where there might be extenuating circumstances, we can certainly take that into consideration, and I would encourage you to contact TennCare directly at tenncare.cct@tn.gov. The worst case scenario is that an account is deactivated because someone hasn't logged into it or someone hasn't renewed their form. And the worst case scenario, we have that user resubmit the form when they come back from leave, and then we can flip their account back to active status. So there's not necessarily a huge um, uh, there's a way to again reactivate that account. And so just have that person reach out to us. But if you want to try to bring that up with TinCare in advance, you can reach out to them. So. You are more than welcome, and what a wonderful question. I appreciate you submitting that. Are there any other questions about the AUP process or the forms or the timeline? Again, most of you will probably be receiving a note from TinCare regarding this process in the next few months, given that the majority of our users requested access to the tool about a year ago. So any other questions, comments, concerns about this process?
Hey Dylan, this is Becca.
Hey,
I would
Becca.
just also like to add, once you submit your form, you will, if it's just for your renewal and you get that in on time, there's no further action that'll happen. You'll just maintain your access and keep going as you have been while you're accessing the tool. The only time that you'll see some things happen after is if your account is deactivated and then you have to sign the forms. And in that case, you'll receive those emails from Health EC, which will, the first one will be kind of a welcome email. Here's how you log in. And the second one will be your password. So just wanted to mention that so people will know what to expect in the two situations.
Awesome. Thank you, Becca. And and that calls to mind also the idea that that if you are a if you use the tool, but you don't use it all the time, that's okay. In um, the tool is set to deactivate accounts that have not been accessed for 180 days, so about 6 months. So just keep that in mind. If you are a someone who uses the tool sometimes but not very often, just make sure you're logging in, trying to log in maybe once a month, once every other month. There's no rhyme or reason to when you have to log in, except for the fact that after 100 days of inactivity, your account will be deactivated, and that again has to do with security protocols. So in the event that you have had your account deactivated currently, that you've already had your account deactivated for that reason, or perhaps for another reason, um, reach out to TennCare at tenncare.cct@tn.gov. They're going to ask you to resubmit your forms anyway, and then that way, with a brand new form, with a brand new form in place, we can TennCare can work with Health EC to get your account reactivated. Okay, awesome. Well, the next thing we had on our agenda was just about contacting TennCare. We know, or I'm sorry, contacting the right organization with your questions about the care coordination tool. And we bring this up mostly because we just want to make sure you're getting the help you need as quickly as possible. And so some ideas that we have here are regarding to when to contact TennCare and when to contact Health DC. So we've just been talking about gaining access to the CCT in these report, or I'm sorry, these security forms. So that is certainly something to contact TennCare about. If you have questions, if your account has been deactivated due to inactivity, or if you've got especially if you're a practice administrator, if you've got a new user who needs access to the tool, the fourth bullet down here is again sort of if you're a practice administrator and you have somebody who is leaving your organization and therefore should have their account deactivated because they're leaving your organization. That is absolutely something TennCare should needs to know for multiple reasons, and so you can go ahead and contact TennCare for that. If you have questions or are curious about training materials or other opportunities to learn about the tool, you can contact TinCare. You can see the list here for sure. And then tincare.cct@tn.gov is the email address for you to use there. Now, some other issues that come up include technical issues that might include questions regarding data accuracy or data completeness, or something's just not looking right in the tool. If you have questions about your password or getting that resetted, or resetted, if you have questions about getting your password reset, or if you have any questions about just how to use the tool, that might be a little bit different from the training materials and those types of opportunities, HealthEC is a wonderful place to go as well. And their email address is tincarecctsupport@healthec.com. It's a little bit of a longer email address, so don't worry about it. If you can write it down here, that's great. The main thing that we would point you to, I think, is the contact us page that TinCare has set up with regard to the CCT. It explains a lot of what you're seeing here, but then also has some helpful buttons that just that directly point you to the appropriate organization for your questions or comments. So you can do something as simple as searching for TinCare CCT in your web browser of choice, and then look for the Contact Us page. And again, you should see something that looks a little bit like this with helpful buttons that can point you to the appropriate email address. So tip of the month, there you are. Hopefully, again, with this information, you're able to reach out to the group that's going to be perhaps most efficient at getting back to you. Again, any of these email addresses will work, but if the first step is taken in the right direction, then that avoids the situation where maybe HealthEC is forwarding your email to TinCare, and then TinCare is working on it and then forwarding something back to HealthEC to get back to you, or whatever it might be. Again, sometimes just starting in the right place can be the most efficient and effective way to get your questions answered. So, any questions there? Hopefully this is helpful. But we're happy to answer any questions again about contacting TinCare, or if you've had a specific question and you weren't sure where to go. Certainly feel free to bring that up now. So I'll pause right here and give everyone just a moment to submit your questions if you have any.
Hey, Dylan, while we're waiting on questions to be
Sure.
submitted, I thought this might be a great time to remind any of our practice administrators who are on the call, if, or even our users too, if you have staff who have left their position and had access to the care coordination tool, or in the future, if you have a staff member that leaves their position or no longer needs access to the tool, we would greatly appreciate it if you would send us an email at tincare.cct@tn.gov and let us know so that we can activate their account. I know that's oftentimes a lot to keep up with, but it really helps us to make sure that those who have access to the tool are the ones that need it. And just again, with the information that's included, we just want to make sure that we keep that information safe and secure. So again, if you have people that leave their position or move to a new position and no longer need access to the tool, please let us know so we can deactivate their account.
Absolutely. Thank you, Becca. And yes, that's just a great point. Obviously, we don't imagine anybody would continue accessing the CCT in any sort of malicious way, but certainly we want to take all the steps necessary to protect the sensitive data that is included in the CCT. So again, thank you for that point. If you practice administrators especially, feel free to contact TinCare, or please indeed contact TinCare whenever you have someone changing roles or leaving your organization. Um, so Awesome. So actually, here's one question kind of on this front from Jen. Do we need to notify anyone of frequent runtime errors? The last few times you just wait for a while and it normally starts working again. So Jen, thank you for your concern there. That is a great example of perhaps a technical issue that you could point to Health EC. In that case, if there's any sort of error message or error code or anything, if it's possible to grab a little screenshot of that or something to that effect, that is that would be a helpful point to and it's happening to you right now. So that is absolutely the type of thing that you can send to Help DC. Certainly, try you might try a couple of different things, including closing your browser, refreshing the window, logging out of the tool, logging back into the tool. Sometimes, certainly clearing your history or your browser cache, it can help with those types of things. Um, but if it is something that you're experiencing frequently, then certainly I would, especially if it's the same error, then that is absolutely something you could document and submit to HealthyC for support. On that note, and Becca, I know we've worked with some organizations over the past 6 months, and we've heard from, there was a survey that we conducted back in March um, that many of you answered, and we appreciate that. And in that survey, several people documented that there was slowness in the tool, especially with certain pages. We've worked with some of you to sort of see that in action, if you will, see that slowness in action, if that makes sense. And so, Becca, I know from Healthy C's standpoint, they've identified a couple of things that have to do with the way the data is loaded into the tool, converted, analyzed, and flipped into sort of display format. And so, I might just say, if it's okay, Becca, that that there's still work going on that effort. And so, Jen, maybe there's a tie-in there. Some of where you're experiencing those runtime errors are in a place where it's the documented slowness is being investigated and worked on. But hopefully we've got people working on stuff like that. So again, Jen, if you have anything that is frequent, please feel free to let us know.
That's correct, Dylan. I would agree that there's still some work being done on this, and we're well aware that there are some slowness issues or runtime errors that some people experience. So, yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I also see from Angela, does the data accuracy also apply to the quality reports? In that case, Angela, I would say it sounds like perhaps what you're alluding to is that maybe what you're seeing in the tool is not this, it does not align with maybe what you're seeing from your MCO reports. Is that part of what you're thinking? Okay, so Becca, maybe I'll toss that question over to
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Happy to take this one, Dylan. So Angela, what I would say here is that the data in the CCT is not going to be an apples to apples comparison to the reports that you receive from your MCOs. A lot of this has to do with claims lag. It has to do with the data that the MCOs have access to. So we have never promised that that will be a one-to-one comparison. And if it's something completely different, right? So, I mean, if you're at one end of the spectrum with a quality measure for your MCO reports and another end of the spectrum on the CCT or vice versa, that might be a little different. But again, it's not going to be an exact comparison, but it should be in a ballpark of the same.
And Becca, maybe I know another question we've gotten sometimes on on data accuracy might just be like there, something with regard to I beg your pardon, as my computer is trying to get me to install something. Um, is something regarding like it, other data points within the tool that might be available at the population level, such as like a diagnosis of it- maybe it's diabetes, right? Where our healthcare providers who use the tool have maybe a general understanding or a general expectation of what percentage of their population is likely to have that sort of diagnosis. And then maybe they're checking something in the tool and it's looking really different. Maybe it's plus or minus something that seems uh, uh, unexpected. Is there is How about something like that? Is that maybe something they should contact Healthy C about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And obviously I think the important thing to know here is that Healthy C is in contact with TenCare on a daily basis. And so if there's anything that gets tossed to Healthy C around this that they want to bring us into, they certainly will. And if we need to reach out to MCOs as well, we can do that.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you, Becca and Angela. Thank you for your wonderful question. Um, and Diane, I also see your message here indicating that you've reached out several times about resetting your password and that there was apparently a ticket created and that maybe you just don't feel like you've heard anything in some time now. So if you don't mind, Diane, maybe at this point in time you can reach out to tencare.cct@tn.gov. And as Becca just mentioned, TenCare and Healthy C talk multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day. And so certainly this is something that perhaps we can help close the loop on. You are more than welcome, Diane. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for your wonderful questions up to this point in time. This is exactly, I think, a wonderful segue sort of into the back half of this call. Now that we've discussed a couple of those sort of administrative pieces, we also want to just continue answering your questions. Again, this is the main point of our call today. So whether you have questions about using the tool, or whether you are new to the tool, or if you're experiencing things that you are wondering about, feel free to let us know. I see one question has already come in. Thank you so much. And let's see. It says, I'm an MCO user. The previous tool allowed me to export an Excel report where I could see the MTM members risk category. Can you please let me know if there's a way to do this on the CCT in a previous training? So this was done on the MTM dashboard, but you've been told that MCO users cannot get access to that. Is this information available somewhere else? So thank you so much for that wonderful question. As an MCO user, and especially on the MTM piece, there are a couple of different things to sort of keep in mind. Number one, just in this version of the tool, the MCO's access and permissions are different than what they have been in the past. And then also with regard to the MTM program, many individuals uh, well, just with the MTM program itself, there have been some um, ongoing efforts to just continue of assessing the care coordination tool and the MTM program. So I would say at this point in time, if you are trying to access some MTM information, there it might be the appropriate place might be to start with the MTM team at TenCare and or the MTM team maybe within your organization. At this point in time, the CCT is probably not going to be able to get you what you need or what you're hoping to see. So the MTM um, email address, Becca, I don't actually have it handy. I
I
think
am pulling it up right now and I'll
awesome.
drop it into the chat for everybody.
Thank you. I think it's like MTM pilot at TenCare. But yes, so
Yes.
so that would be perhaps my advice there would just be to contact the MTM team at TenCare directly to see what you might be able to get. You are more than welcome. Awesome. And Becca, thank you so much for adding that into the chat space. So Jen, hello Jen, thank you for your question. Can you show me how to download a med list RX history by specific dates? And we can certainly take a look at that. Now, whether or not it's downloadable might be something, Jen, that we'll have to see if this is the type of thing that you're looking for. So first of all, I've gone ahead and logged into the tool, and again, for many of you, this is hopefully what you would see when you log in. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm just going to come to our member search to start your process here. Um, Oh, you can print it. It just prints the RX date. Okay, or it just prints the prescription. So okay, so so if we just choose a member, I'm going to help improve our odds here of getting someone. I'm going to choose BCMH, but I'm going to put them as a high critical, and then we will run a search. And so what you might do is you might, run a search for your member name or for their member ID or social security number if you have a specific member that you're looking for. And so if you're looking for a member's information, you would just select the member by clicking on that icon on the left. And then Jen, the place where I'm going here on the members care plan pages is all the way at the bottom. I want to point this out to you first because it's going to give you a long list of their prescription history. And if you come all the way down here, again, all the way down at the bottom, you've got RX history where you should be able to see things like the dispense date, etc. And so hopefully that's helpful to you. Now, when it comes to printing this information, if you click on this little icon over here, hopefully, and you click on the RX history, I'm going to click on the print icon and wait for this to pull up. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. You can see here that on the second page, you've got essentially the same RX history that we were just looking at. And you've got the dispensed on date, paid on date, etc. So Jen, I hope that's what you're looking for. If it's not, let me know and maybe we can try to find the information that you're looking for in another spot. And so one more time, also for okay, so Jen, thank you. It's your and that's what you're doing. So you are, and just for other folks, again, the print icon over here on the right looks like a little document with an outbound arrow, and you can choose any of these items just by clicking on them and then clicking the print button here. So Jen, you are trying to print according to performance year and not all the years of the medications, and I see what you mean there. So at this point in time, I'm trying to think. There's that's what I've just showed you, and what you're doing is probably the best way to print and members RX history. You do have the option to come over to their medical care page, and this is going to allow you to also look at their medications. You can click on the detailed view, and this would allow you to perhaps view things that are a little bit more current, if that's what you're looking for. There are ways that you can edit this information. You can also create a filter if you are interested in finding medications from a specific time period, or if you only want inactive medications, whatever it might be. That might be another way to get at this information, and hopefully um, that could help you if you're looking for something a little bit more specific there. And just for anybody, just for those who are also on the call, again, on the medical care page, you've got a lot of other good information here available, including diagnosis, if there were lab reports that have been submitted, or history of procedures. All of this information is going to be available to you on a member's medical care page. So, also, Jen, do you ever have any interest or any need in understanding individual, like a broader search for a specific medication? Indeed, you're trying to get at all the people who might have been prescribed a specific medication, or are you usually just looking at an individual's medication history. And basically what I'm was going to say, so thanks, Jen. So usually at an individual, but it might be a good idea for a panel. So what I can show you very quickly is, again, just sort of on the member search page, if you use the advanced search functionality, you can look for medications. So if you wanted to understand, everybody who's been prescribed a rescue inhaler, if you come to the advanced member search function, you would create a title for something like rescue inhaler, and you would click add the expression, or I'm sorry, it defaults with one already there. And then you would just scroll down here to either to medications, and then you would have the ability to search for the medication by searching for the medication name, or even the NDC number. And I don't know if this will work or not, but as you can see, as I started typing, some options did appear down here in the list, including their NDC numbers. And so if you had one, excuse me, naturally, you can see there are a lot of options here. But if you wanted to just understand who was on albuterol, then you could do that. And again, the NDC number is going to be the most specific way to get a particular medication on the list. But you can choose more than one. Obviously, there are lots of options here, etc. And then you would choose all the ones that you need, and you could save that report to this, and then you would save and select. And as you would see, and then as you're used to, you would click the search button, and this data down at the bottom would automatically update to help you understand who's been prescribed a certain thing. Doesn't look like anybody was prescribed that combination of inhalers, so we didn't get anybody here today. So could you search for shots given by pharmacists? That's a great question. And Jen, I have to say, Becca, I don't know if you know the full answer to this or not. I am not sure. Jen, I think the best thing I can offer you right now is that you could try it. I don't think there's any, I think you could certainly try it um, if there was especially an MDC number associated with a shot or an immunization that you could type in here. I think you could totally run that search. But this is a great question, and Becca, I don't know if you know whether or not this specifically would be in there or not, but I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I would agree that using the specific medication or injection, whatever it was that was being given, that's probably the best way. I don't know, trying to think on the list of medications. Um, Let me think about that, Jen, and see. Let me think about that. And Jen, if you don't mind, if you'll send me your email, and I can follow up with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Becca. And thanks, Jen, for your wonderful question there. Um, and it looks like you're trying it right now on the spot, which is great news. So there you go. So for others out there, feel free, again, feel free to, try shots or injections or anything that would have an NDC number, and see if you are able to find that information. Again, if you're interested in understanding this type of thing from across your member panel, this advanced member search is a wonderful way to go. And again, you can also layer in expressions. We didn't talk about this very much, but if you had a specific medication that you wanted to search for, and you wanted to search for users within a specific county, say for example, if your organization is a statewide organization, but you yourself are based in a specific county, Shelby County, Davidson County, etc. You can choose the county search, and then search for your specific county, etc. So Again, the advanced member search functionality here is pretty powerful, and we hope that if you're not using it to create um, a, a set of interesting sort of analytics or analytical views of your member panel, that hopefully it could help you in the future. Okay, so one more question. You're an MCO user. It's my understanding that THL providers can see if a member is in PCMH when they drill down into a specific member. Is that PCMH info also exportable so they can see who of their full member panel is in PCMH? And the short answer to this question is yes. And so this one of the nice things about the care coordination tool. Is that it does allow for that sort of cross um, member assignment view, if you will. So if you are a PCMH organization and some of your members are also in the THL program, you can see some of their THL specific information and vice versa. And so there are a couple of different ways to do that. I'm just clearing out the data here. But it looks like if you are interested in exporting this sort of across their full member panel, I think the easiest way to do that would be just to start with this member search. And so if you were interested in, I am logged in as a PCMH provider, so we'll have to come at it from that direction. But if I wanted to know who from my member panel, all 34,366 members, if I wanted to know who from my member panel was also enrolled in a THL program, what I could do is where it says program, I would select from this list THL. You can even then go further down the filtering set and choose a specific status. So if you only wanted to know who is actively enrolled in the THL program, you could do that. If you wanted to support their participation in the THL program by focusing on individuals who have qualified for the program but not yet enrolled, you could set that status here. I'll choose active just so that we can get a good sense of what's going on here. And then you can also choose the risk level if you wanted to. So if you wanted to focus on your most critical members or all of them, it would be certainly up to you. I will run a search for those members. And then that list will populate here at the bottom. You can see our list of 34,000 drop down to 1,500-ish. And you can see, of course, that a lot of this information is available to you here. Now, the one thing that you would see perhaps is if you exported this information in this view right here. Let me show you, well, let me just show you what happens when you export the data. So you click on the little export to Excel icon in the top right corner, and that works for any member search that you have run using these parameters or using the advanced member search. This export to Excel icon will export the data that you see below. We can open this information up. And I'm doing this because, in part, there have been some changes to what is available in this information, and so when it's exported, and so I just want to make sure that we're able to show that to you here today. So what you can see is you've got the member's full name, their date of birth, age, gender, their race, their address. So if you want to reach out to them, you certainly can. And if you want to filter by zip code or by county, you can do that as well. Phone number, health plan, you've got their member ID in case that's helpful, social security number, care coordinators, assigned provider. And then you've got things like attribution date, attribution end date, etc. Chronic conditions and THL status also appear here. And then the list kind of goes on to include other columns that might be helpful as part of the advanced member search. So like we were just talking about in advanced member search, you've got the medications column here. One thing I will say, and this might be part of your question here. So when you do drill down at the individual level, what you would be able to see is that for the user on row 3, or I'm sorry, for the member whose information we have on row 3, the assigned provider here, If it says someone's name, that the good indication there is that this is the assigned provider within your organization on the PCMH side. Again, I'm logged in as a PCMH provider, and so this is the assigned provider from my organization who has been assigned to this member. The um, if they're if they are only in a THL program, or if you are a THL user, there's a good chance that what you would see in this primary, or I'm sorry, in this assigned provider column is the name of your organization. Um, so Health Connect America or something like that would be the organization name there. One question from Jen. Thank you as always, Jen. Is the attribution date given by the MCOs, or is it more of an integrated thing? The dates you find do not match with the MCO lists. So great question. So the attribution date here, just starting with the end date, this is a generic end date, as you can see here, had December 31st, 99.99, is just has to do with that. What that is attributed to, or what that aligns to, is if the member is active, then their end date is listed as this generic status. If they are inactive, this is when you would see a specific hard coded attribution end date there. Um, Now, Becca, I know we've gotten some questions about the attribution start date and end date, and if something's not lining up with what's on the MCOs there versus what's in the care coordination tool. I know there's been some discussion about that, but it's my understanding that the attribution start date, Becca, is the date that the member entered into, uh, or more or less became eligible for services and therefore was assigned an MC, was entered into the program.
Yeah,
Is that
I
fair?
think that's correct, Dylan. And if you're seeing really big discrepancies, Jen, feel free to reach out. We can take a look at those. There are some, because obviously this tool came into play, after the programs have been going, there were some bulk imports of some of this information, and so there may have been some things that might have gotten moved around. Also, I think there has been some work done to upload like historical attribution data. That may still be going on. I'm not 100% sure if that has finished yet or not. It may have. But Jen, again, feel free to reach out to us if you have some specific questions around that, or where you are seeing discrepancy.
Sure. And Becca, maybe one thing that might factor into that, like with a lot of things with the tool, there might be one or multiple things going on. Um, and maybe perhaps I don't know. One thing that could happen that might cause a discrepancy is if a member changes providers but doesn't actually unenroll from the program. Attribution dates might change, sort of on that front, but might also in the tool itself appear differently if sort of based on when they were enrolled in the program versus when they might have started with a new provider. Just again, Jen, sorry if that confused things at all, but yes, just thank you, Becca. Thank you, Jen. You think you understand not all members are automatically PCMH, so there's a little lag until they've completely added. And yes, that I think that is the case. And so therefore, again, if you're seeing it in any sort of big major ways, like no one's attribution dates seem to line up or they seem to be off by months, that would certainly be something to look into. If you have a specific use case and you just want to understand it a little bit more, we can also help on that front. Okay, excuse me. All right, well, thank you all so much for your wonderful questions so far today. We've got just a few more minutes, and so let me just make one last call for questions, if there's anything else out there that we can address for you. Okay, well, maybe one thing I will show you, this is one of the more recent um, enhancements to the tool that just I'll showcase for you very quickly, just in case folks haven't seen it yet. It has to do with the admissions and discharge piece. Um, and I see this one question about, are there online videos to help train with utilizing the CCT? And yes, Veronica, I can show you where those reside in just a moment. Becca, thank you so much. That's perfect. So what I was going to show you very quickly with regard to the ADT piece is that recently a recent enhancement. Let me actually just change this to a year just so that we get folks. A recent enhancement to the tool includes the ability to leave a note for an ADT event. So if, for example, you are working through your list of individuals who have been to the hospital recently and you are attempting to call them and you want to leave a little note next to the name of someone who you have recently called, you are able to do that in the care coordination tool now. As you can see, next to this first individual, I will just click on the little blue sort of text icon, text box icon, and you can view notes. This is also where you can enter a note if you, again, um, care to. And you can see here, I won't add a new note, but this is where you would add it. You can see that down here in the summary, you can see this individual, has received some test note, etc. And so all the notes that you have here do stay in line with this person. So again, just wanted to call that out because that is a relatively new feature of the tool. One question from Renata, thank you so much. Attributed but not enrolled means they're not PCMH. Is that true? So the attributed but not enrolled status really applies only to THL, to members who are part of the THL program. So if they are just in the PCMH category, or if you are a PCMH organization, your members will not have that status unless they are also in the THL program. And so what you would be able to do is look at them to say, okay, here are all of my members as a PCMH organization. Who within my member panel is also in the THL program, and then within that sort of program, who is attributed but not enrolled. And Renata, it seems like you've got it there now. So certainly feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. So let me just close out our session today with a couple of few reminders. As always, and Becca, thank you again for posting the link to the Care Coordination Tool Learning Library and Training page. This training has been recorded today and will be available on the YouTube channel by the end of the week next week. It usually doesn't take that long, but we appreciate your patience as we work to get that uploaded there. Here's the link to that page, and Becca has also dropped that in the chat space as well. We talked a little bit about visiting the Contact Us page earlier. Again, as a reminder, if you ever need that and you can't remember how to get there, the easiest way to find either the Learning Library or the YouTube channel or the Contact Us page is to Google TennCare Care Coordination Tool or TennCare CCT. It's often going to be the first thing that pops up in your result list. So please remember that that you can just always turn to Google and use keywords like TennCare CCT or TennCare Care Coordination Tool to find information. As a reminder, everybody's going to be going through the acceptable use policy renewal process over the next short time period, and those emails will be going out soon. So please, again, be sure to be on the lookout for those email addresses. And then finally, with regard to contacting us and or receiving emails from the support groups that we've mentioned, please take a moment to add TennCare CCT support at healthyc.com to your safe sender list. That way, whether it's a password reset request or whether they are sending out automatic messages regarding inactivity in the account, there are a couple of things that TennCare's partner HealthyC will send to users periodically. Again, usually associated with your password is about to expire or you haven't logged in a while, please log in, or you're about to be deactivated, things like that. But if you would, please add them to your safe sender list to help ensure that you receive those important updates and communications. So with that, I will close it out. If one last call for questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm available for a few more minutes if anything is on your mind. But generally, thank you all so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to reconnecting with you all again in the near future. Thank you, everybody. Yes, Veronica, let me drop that in the chat session here. Just a moment.